From the bizarre New England vampires to the mysterious toxic woman from California, these are some of the strangest unexplained events in history. Don't forget to click subscribe to become part of the DTR family and that little bell icon so that you know when we post new videos. Number 16. Catherine Labour of France. Catholic nun Catherine Labour spent a majority of her years caring for the infirm and aged. She died in 1876 at 70 and her remains were exhumed 141 years later. When experts examined her remains, they found that her body had surprisingly remained relatively undecomposed. Her remains are now kept inside a glass coffin at the Chapel of Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal side altar. The Catholics refer to her as having been incorruptible, so much so that God allowed her body to retain its purity. Pope Pius XII canonized her into sainthood in 1947 after the discovery of her incorrupt body. Number 15. French poltergeist. The CIA publicized classified documents in 2017 describing how a French family had been the victims of a poltergeist back in 1980. The noisy ghost allegedly unlocked doors and moved beds around, terrorizing the family. How the CIA got involved in the incident is a mystery, but they weren't able to explain the weird happenings. The family had to move to Guadalupe just to escape the ghost. Number 14. Porpoise grave. Archaeologists working on a site in the English Channel uncovered a 14th century grave. They expected to exhume the body of a human, but what they found buried within was a porpoise. It's not clear why an aquatic creature received such a burial. Number 13. Voynich manuscript. A Polish book dealer bought a book in 1912 that opened up a can of worms that I didn't expect. The 250-page book turned out to have been written in an unknown language or writing system, and the carbon dating traced it back to the 1400s. It also contained illustrations of plants that aren't like any species we know. The belief is that it's intended to be a medical text according to its first owner, George Beresk, who passed away in 1662. Beresk was an alchemist from Prague, and he found the book just lying in the library and attempted to investigate its origins. He never made any strides in his investigations, and after Beresk's death, the manuscript changed hands for centuries. Finally, it made its way to the hands of Voynich, after whom it's named, and he suggested that it was authored by alchemist Albert Magnus or scientist Roger Bacon. Some even believe that Voynich fabricated the manuscript and story, but carbon dating of the ink and paper prove otherwise. Centuries later, and no one has been able to explain what the book contains, who authored it, and for what reason. Number 12. Missing Michigan PhD student. Xing Rong, a 27-year-old University of Michigan PhD student, rented and piloted a single-engine Cessna 172 from the Ann Arbor Airport. Ontario police discovered the crashed plane just outside Manitouwadge in Canada. The unusual thing is that Rong's body was nowhere in sight, and there were no footprints near the wreckage to suggest that he might have walked away from the crashed plane. The incident happened in March 2017, and investigators are yet to find Rong's body. Number 11. The Norwegian woman. A group of hikers trekking through Norway's Isdalen Valley Mountains came upon the body of a woman in 1970. Her body had been partially burnt, and an autopsy revealed that she had possibly consumed 50 sleeping pills. She also had her fingerprints sanded off and suffered from a block inflicted on her neck. Her true identity was never determined, and her death also seemed very peculiar. Number 10. D.B. Cooper. His tale is much like something you'd go to the big screen to watch, but a real-life villain called Dan Cooper pulled off a successful and unsolved plane heist back in 1971. Cooper was a passenger on a Portland to Seattle Northwest Airlines flight. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant who had just served him a soda and bourbon that he'd ordered. At first, she ignored it, thinking he was just giving her his phone number, but he insisted that she take it, telling her that he had a bomb. The note demanded $200,000, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck on standby to refuel the plane in Seattle. The airline's president was cooperative to Cooper's demands, and the plane's other passengers had no idea about what was happening. When the plane landed in Seattle, an airline staff delivered a knapsack filled with cash and the parachutes that Cooper had requested. He allowed all passengers as well as 2 flight attendants to leave the plane. While refueling, Cooper outlined his plan to the crew to travel towards Mexico, and 2 hours later they took off. The plane eventually landed in Reno, and Cooper was nowhere to be seen and never to be heard from again. However, in 1980, a boy vacationing with his family in Oregon found ransom money that could be identified by the serial number. It ignited an intense search for Cooper, but nothing was ever found. Number 9. 1908 Tunguska Event. In 1908, an explosion said to have been 150 times more powerful than a nuclear bomb occurred around the Stony Tunguska River in Russia. It's still the largest impact event recorded in history because it flattened down an 800-square-mile remote Siberian forest. The other problem is that the cause of the explosion remains unknown. Number 8. Mysterious pinging noise. In 2016, the Canadian Army investigated a strange pinging sound pinging from the sea floor. Hunters became concerned about a beeping or pinging noise that they kept hearing coming from the Fury and Hecla Strait. The sound apparently scared off animals from the hunting area, while they often frequented the open water surrounded by ice because of the sea mammals. When summer rolled in that year, there were hardly any animals around, which led to the military stepping in, hoping to find the source of the unusual sound. No viable explanation ever came out of the investigations to reveal what was making the noise. Number 7. The Great Lakes Ghost Ship. While shooting a music video, commercial director and cameraman Jason Asselin captured what looked like a ghost ship. They were filming off the coast on the lake near Marquette when someone on their team noticed something in the distance. Asselin zoomed in on the object that he says was moving around a lot like a pirate ship. He described it as having a mast and billowing sails, but someone else on his team thought it was a ghost ship. They posted the video, which went viral, but no one can explain what Asselin's camera really captured. Number 6. California's Toxic Woman. In 1994, California's Riverside General Hospital admitted Gloria Ramirez as a final-stage cervical cancer patient. The hospital nurses began noticing an ammonia-like odor around her body, and soon after, 23 staff members fell ill following Gloria's arrival. Gloria passed on the same evening, but the hospital never established what caused the odor. Number 5. Russian dashcam teleportation. A Russian truck driver's dashcam captured what everyone believes is an actual teleportation. The driver barely dodged a strange man who just happened to show up in the middle of the road out of nowhere. The video surfaced in 2012, and some people thought that it was proof of teleportation or time travel. It doesn't help that the man that just appeared on the highway had what looked like a lab coat, much like what a scientist would wear. Number 4. New England Vampires. Nick Ballantoni, a New England state archaeologist, investigated a farmer's graveyard in 1990. Surprisingly, one of the graves had remains arranged in a crossbones and skull pattern. Further research revealed that many bodies around the cemetery had been buried similarly to prevent them from rising back from the dead as vampires. Number 3. Chilean UFO. In 2014, a Navy helicopter filmed a 9-minute video showing what appears to be a UFO in the sky. The Navy captain and technician on a routine patrol spotted the unidentified object hovering above, and they tracked it, and they were unsuccessful at initiating communication. After 2 years of study, authorities declassified the video, and the Navy officials admitted that they were not able to find a plausible explanation for the video. Number 2. Frozen alive. Jean Hillier lived to tell the tale that still baffles doctors today. In December of 1980, when she was just 19 years old, she drove her car to visit a friend in rural Minnesota. Unfortunately, she crashed the car and decided to walk the remaining 2 miles to her friend's house. The freezing temperatures literally stopped her in her tracks, and the next morning, Hillier was found frozen solid. Her heart rate had drastically dropped down to 12 beats per minute, but miraculously she recovered fully from the ordeal. Number 1. The Man in the Iron Mask. During the reign of France's King Louis XIV in the 1680s, rumors were rife of a mysterious prisoner whose identity remains unknown to date. Alexander Dumas's famous tale about the man forced to wear an iron mask made him much more of a wonder. A 1687 Gazette mentioned the prisoner being transferred to the citadel of Sainte Marguerite, escorted by Benin de Saint Mars, who was a former musketeer. Saint Mars moved the prisoner again in 1698 when he took up a governor appointment at the Bastille prison in Paris. The man died in 1703 in his 50s, and all his clothes and belongings were burned at dawn. Tall tales ensued in the years that followed, with some saying that the man's punishment to spend his life imprisoned wearing a mask came directly from the throne. Thanks for watching. Coming up next, strange mermaids from around the world. Sumerian civilization believed in the Apkallu, who were considered as antediluvian demigods. Enki, also called Uranus, the fish man-god, sent the semi-divine beings to guide humans through the arts of civilization and moral codes. In total, there were 7 fishmen and 7 more birdmen.